Maxim 5, a choice among types of deception. Where possible, the objective of the deception planner should be to reduce the ambiguity in the mind of the victim to force him to seize upon a notional world view as being correct, not making him less certain of the truth, but more certain of a particular falsehood. However, increasing the range of alternatives and or the evidence to support any of many incorrect alternatives in the jargon, increasing the noise, may have particular use when the victim already has several elements of truth in his possession. At the risk of burdening the world with further nomenclature, it is convenient, as suggested by Daniel and al., to classify deception into two types. A for ambiguity deception and M for misdirection deception. A, ambiguity deception, increases the ambiguity in the victim's mind and lowers the probability of a correct perception by dilution or manipulation of alternatives. M deception reduces the ambiguity in the victim's mind by having him become convinced of a particular falsehood. Either form of deception can be accomplished incidentally by telling only the truth, as Lewin quoted one of the A force deception experts: truths do not constitute the truth. A deception can function by altering the probabilities attached to various outcomes in the mind of the opponent, diluting or burying useful information in noise, and or by altering the perceived range of options and outcomes available to the opponent. Robert Holstetter's classic analysis of the Pearl Harbor surprise borrowed the concepts of signal and noise from communications theory. Her dictum: to understand the fact of surprise, it is necessary to examine the characteristic of the noise as well as the signals that after the event are clearly seen to herald the attack, has a corollary to the effect that noise can be created by the deception architect to overpower or swamp the signal. Jervis also remarks on the advantages of ambiguity in international relations. Eric Ambler, in a recent novel entitled Send No More Roses, stated the principle of a deception elegantly and simply by having one of the story's protagonists muse. We gave him a kaleidoscope to play with, and he used it as a looking glass. A simple example of an attack-defense game will show the active principle. Suppose the attacker has a choice between two locations. Likewise, the defender can choose to defend either location. For illustrative purposes, the option of allocating some of his forces to each location is omitted. Success is defined as an attack against an undefined or undefended location. It is apparent from this construct that ceteris paribus, the attacker has a 50-50 chance of choosing an undefended location. But what if the attacker could convince the defender that there were three possible locations for an attack? Here it follows that the success probability climbs to 2, 3, and so forth, reaching unity as a mathematical limit when the number of threatened sites grows arbitrarily large. It is, of course, necessary that the options introduced be both individually and collectively credible to the victim. As a practical matter, the number of threats cannot grow arbitrarily large. Cruikshank, for example, recounts how this was appreciated by deception planners in connection with the invasion of Sicily. It was decided very wisely that to mount so many threats in the Mediterranean would stretch the Germans' credulity too far. Moreover, the fact that Sicily was almost the only object not threatened might lead them to guess the truth. To prevent this, the simulated threats to North and West France, Pantelleria, and Lampedusa were abandoned. Though the foregoing discussion is deliberately oversimplified, it clearly illustrates the principle of A, deception. As an aside to those readers with a mathematical bent, it is tempting to use concepts from information theory in order to characterize or quantify the uncertainty or ambiguity produced by A, deception. Though it may be a convenient mental shorthand, it lacks operational significance, as Basogny has shown in a decision theoretic context. Specifically, he shows via a simple and highly readable example that the benefits, value, or utility of information systems are not directly related to concepts of uncertainty, reduction of Wiener-Shannon uncertainty, or entropy. It is, in fact, trivially easy to construct decision theoretic examples where the entropy is high, yet the value of information is zero, as well as problems where the entropy is low and the value of information is high. The value of information and or cost of misinformation is a composite function of the a priori probabilities of chance events in the decision tree and the utility of value attached to these outcomes, a relation that is not captured by the usual information measures. In contrast to A deception, M deception, or misdirection, reduces uncertainty after Whaley. The ultimate goal of stratagem is to make the enemy quite certain, very decisive, and wrong. Emphasis in original. In the attack defense game, M, or misdirection deception, would involve convincing the victim to defend one side, then attack the other. To the extent this can be achieved, the value of the game also approaches unity. Deception schemes used in practice are typically composites of the two variants, usually with one or the other type dominant. Such was the case at Normandy, for example. The multiple attack location threats in the initial stages are evidence of A deception. In the end phases, however, Normandy was predominantly an M deception. We know of no data that directly addresses the relative efficacy of these types, though there are normative arguments in favor of M deception. Deception professionals seem to prefer M deception, though it can be alleged that this reflects stylistic motives. Who can resist the ultimate triumph of the sting?